In fact, our next speaker, Professor John Price, will be our next presenter, who is a recognised professor in maths and finance in 6 countries. Over the last 11 years, Professor Price has dedicated his time to understanding the methodologies of Warren Buffett, and he's cracked the code. And what Professor Price will talk to us today is about how can we implement those strategies and those methods in our own investing. In fact, there are professional investors in over 35 countries around the world that are using Professor Price's methodologies now. Respected in his field, please make him feel welcome. Warm round of applause for Professor John Price.
Thank you very much. But almost no professionals follow what Buffett does. Sometimes they say they do, but then sort of 3 months or 6 months later say, oh yes, but now we're going to do such and such, or now we're going to do something else. So that they'll often sort of throw the word around, oh yes, we're Buffett, we're value investors and so on. But when it actually gets down to it, there's almost none. Another important thing about Warren Buffett is that when he sees value, he takes action. So he lives in Omaha, Nebraska, which is, you know, in a world stage. It's not a great sort of city. It's a little bit of a backwater city in the USA. He did go to New York and work there for a couple of years when he first started off, but he moved back to Omaha, Nebraska because he felt that he couldn't think in New York, that there was too much noise. And he wanted to go back and be a little bit more separate from the markets and back to where he was born and to sort of think about things in a quiet way. So he does appear to be a sort of very quiet person and just sort of living his own life. He pays himself a salary of $100,000 a year. Now I know that's quite a nice salary, but when you're worth sort of $40 billion, it's a pretty modest salary. Still does his own tax. That's not he doesn't do the tax of Berkshire Hathaway, of course, but does his own sort of personal tax, lives in the same home that he's been living in for the last sort of 30 years or so. So he does live a sort of a quiet, simple life. But when he does see something of value, he really acts. Each year in the annual report, he puts a list saying that the type of companies that he's interested in, and one of his requirements is that he prefers companies that are at least $10 billion in size. So when he's making an investment, he really prefers it to be up that sort of level. Problems that some people have, isn't it? But anyway. But he also says that if you phone him and with a company and give them the details, he said you can be promised a very quick reply, generally within 5 minutes. So generally within 5 minutes after someone making a proposal to him, he evaluates the proposal and makes a decision. Maybe not absolutely to buy or not, but whether to sort of continue the discussion. And even then, when he says, okay, I'm interested in your company, let's arrange a meeting, he'll go to that meeting on his own. He doesn't go with any lawyers or accountants or public relations people. He actually goes to the meeting on his own, generally prefers meeting one-on-one with the principal of the company. And the whole thing is done usually within an hour, certainly done within 2 hours, that he makes the final choice. He doesn't negotiate. If you make an offer, he'll say yes or no, or if he makes the offer, you have to say yes or no. You can't say, well, couldn't it be a little more? Or you can, but if you do, then he'll not go ahead with the deal. So he is a person of very decisive action, and I guess you don't get to that sort of level of wealth, of course, just by continuing doing what you're doing. You have to be a person who does take that decisive action.